Hey YouTube, this is Nashtaters. Welcome back to another episode of War of the Visions. It is almost 6 months, actually next week, so I felt like it was a good time to do my free-to-play 6 months account show and tell. Also, because it's 6 months, I would like to reflect back on what I feel like are some of the strengths of this game and obviously some weaknesses in this game. So let's go ahead and dive into this conversation. So it's been 6 months and we're probably all thinking, how many UR units should I be building? How many MR units should I have? Etc, etc. Well, I don't like to use my account as the true measurement about how people should be doing because I didn't actually start playing this game on day 1 of global launch. I also did not start playing this game other than logging in every day just to get the freebies, probably for a good solid 20 to 30 days. So technically speaking, my account is actually roughly around 5 months old. Now, let's talk about how many UR units do I have that are maxed. I have 1, 2, sort of 3, sort of 4, sort of 5, right? Technically speaking, they're maxed, they just need to be leveled up. So roughly speaking, you should be leveling about 1 UR unit every month. I don't have too many other UR units that are kind of needing to be built at this point, because I pretty much cleared all content. The only problem is I can't clear all content to the max. And what I mean by that is, obviously I cannot clear raid by myself. I don't think many players can. I think you do need to 100% rely on other players to help you out in terms of the higher leveled mobs for the raids. Now in terms of challenges, I never challenge myself to take on the level 90 challenge. But anything that's level 80 or less, I have had no issues beating those. In terms of MR units, I have 1, 2, 3 units maxed. And technically speaking, I probably should have more, but I've been kind of really trying to do more UR units. But in the future, we are going to be getting stones that are going to be corresponding to the individual rarities of those class units. Therefore, you will no longer require to use rainbow fragments of thoughts. As I mentioned before, and I actually did a mini series on the vision cards, I feel like vision cards are the true endgame content of this game. Many people feel like units are definitely the thing to go for, but as I learn more and more, I only need perhaps 10 to 15 units to actually beat this game, technically speaking. And the weakness of those units are always going to come from the lack of statistics coming from the boosts, which will come from the vision cards, the Espers, and your equipment. As you can see, it's very hard to build UR cards as a free-to-play player. However, it's much easier to start worrying about and thinking about doing your MR cards, your rare cards, and of course your SR cards. Something every player perhaps should be thinking about. For me, progression-wise, I only work on the cards that I feel like I need for a specific encounter. Otherwise, I keep my resource where they need to be, because I can never know when I need to draw upon my resource pool to build something for a specific encounter. In terms of Espers, I've been decently lucky on this account. I did win after the guaranteed Diablos, I managed to pull Odin, Shiva, and Ramu, and of course I got the two-headed giant. Personally, I don't know if other things I really need other than perhaps Tetrasulfate, because I do have Lucia and Frederica, and I do hope to have gunners in place for some of my future content coverage. Other than that, I'm not really sure what other cards / Espers that I really need at this moment. I think anything I can get in the future will be okay. Ramu gives me nice magical power, Shiva gives me nice evasion in terms of vision cards, of course. But in terms of Espers, all of these Espers can be used for something specific. And I think that's how people should be building them. For example, I think the Siren would be a great thing to be concentrating on / attack resistance, because right now I believe she gives the highest percentage total at 25%. And of course you can also do Iron Giant for / resistance, Odin for more damage to human players / human units, and of course Shiva and Ramu you could do more in terms of magical power damage. I personally love the Behemoth because he's, in my opinion, like a starter unit slash Esper. You could definitely use him to increase your slash attack and overall physical attack power. In terms of equipment, the UR from the raids are going to be very hard to obtain. But if you're lucky enough to start working on heavily on the MRs, I think you'll be okay for a good while. Because over time, we're not going to be able to complete destruction of those raids until all of us are able to get those quote-unquote units that we can really need to do specific encounters for the raids. For example, Lucia was very dominant in the very first raid. Subsequently, Thenora was really good for the second raid. Of course, currently, I don't really know a true dominant unit per se, other than perhaps Water. Personally, I've been using just any random magic attacker I have and or slash attack unit for my raid teams. I know I won't get too far because right now I'm in the 50s. I think once I get to the 60s and 70s is when I'm really going to get stuck. But even around that level, I think people will probably still rely on other players to join them in their multiplayer mode to accomplish the maximum potential of defeating the raid. Now let's talk about my 6 months overall review of this game. I feel like Square Enix and Gumi has done an exceptional job in terms of being very free to play friendly. Also, I feel like they've been listening to the community. And I think many people in this game love to engage in conversations, whether it be Reddit or YouTube itself or any other source of vehicle in which they can express themselves. And I know many people actually constantly send emails to the companies themselves, perhaps either giving suggestions or maybe filing a little bit of complaints here and there. But I feel overall, during the notice board every single week, the companies have always been on top of their things. We did suffer one situation where the servers crashed unexpectedly, and people were, anxious because of the fact that it was during the beginning of the Final Fantasy Tactics event Part 2. Obviously, they worked diligently to get it up and running. They gave us some compensation, and they even extended one of the events extra day. Now, honestly, I feel like they didn't have to do any of that because sometimes things happen in real life, right? Nobody expects flooding. Nobody expects, hurricanes and things of that nature to just come into your area because I live in Florida. And no matter how many experts, quote unquote, predict the path of those hurricanes, you just never know where they're going to end up. And that's part of the unexpectedness of life. And I feel like the server going down perhaps was out of their control, or maybe it was in their control. Regardless of what actually happened, I just felt like giving us compensation was really nice of them, and perhaps not really needed. Now let's talk about progression in this game. I think this game is very balanced. Certainly a lot of people feel like power creep is a real thing. I've played many games, World of Warcraft, Summoner's Wars, all these other games that are perhaps considered big titles. I always felt like power creep was a major issue in many of those games. I hated the fact that they increased the level cap so hard in World of Warcraft with each expansion, because personally I didn't enjoy that, because I hated when the mudflation, as I like to call it, meaning that the power level goes up so fast in an exponential growth. I feel like it actually harmed the game. While it is kind of nice to see humongous numbers, I'm not a fan of that. I always enjoy the basic mechanisms in terms of max level in the original creation of a game. If you're going to increase the level cap, then simply allow that perhaps as a different option, maybe on different servers that people can quote unquote progress. Because personally, I obviously enjoy the classic release of World of Warcraft. And personally, I hate it when they started thinking about increasing level cap again. And that's when I decided I wanted to walk away. I think in its own right, those type of games are going to hold its own value rather than expanding on it. But I also understand it is an MMO and there's going to be enough people that crave new content. For this game, even all the new units, all the vision cards, and perhaps all the collaborations they've been releasing, I never felt like there was any sort of power creeping per se. Even I'm staring at Deleter right now. He does really good damage, but he can still be easily taken down by water units, and I think that's the beauty of this game. The fine balance of the elemental system and the fine balance of tiny increments with each perhaps subsequent release of units and or equipment slash fishing cards. And I think that's what's great about this game, that the producers and the designers took a lot of time to give it a lot of thought. Another important thing about the longevity of games is how the companies themselves react to situations and how they plan their marketing. Currently, I feel like the game itself has done an exceptional job in terms of marketing, appealing to the masses, and overall quality of life improvements. I know this is one of those games that have a Japanese originator, and that the global release for many games are actually considered second thoughts. And many people hate the idea that when they have an original copy of a game, why not bring all the quality of life changes up to that point of release when they release it on a brand new server, such as a global version? Personally, I'm a big advocate of that as well. However, that all being said, the companies have been working diligently to bring us quality of life improvements much faster on the timeline than the original JP version, which I think is a great idea. And sometimes it's kind of like Christmas. You know, you wait for that Wednesday morning and boom, you don't know what you're gonna get because we don't know what quality of life injections they have given us without letting us know. And I think that's actually pretty cool of them. Now, obviously, every single week, the game is very generous in giving us gems. 2,500 guaranteed, plus any other gems they give us with events. I think that's very generous of them, because that's pretty much one full summon every week. Most games that I play that are gacha system, generally speaking, give you one full summon every month. So this game has given us at least 4 to 6 full summons every month. And on top of it, every month seemingly they give us free summons, just free. And I can't personally wait till the 6-month celebration because I know we're gonna be getting a lot more different things. I don't really personally know what's coming, and I know there are data miners and there are people who are giving us previews of what's coming. Personally, I don't like to cover such content because personally I don't like those content. Now, one person has brought up the idea that data mining is not necessarily a bad thing, and I agree and disagree, of course. I think ultimately when you wield power is how you use it. Some people tend to abuse it for their personal gains, and some people like to use it to help the community. And of course, I think you will know where I stand in terms of which part of that I actually firmly believe in. And while I never condone people, using things to their own personal gains, I feel like if you do, you are clearly gambling. And if you do end up being rid of from our community, all I can say is it's probably well deserved. But overall, I think the game is moving in the right direction. Personally, I love the 2 Final Fantasy Tactics releases. I think they even throw baby collaborations such as Final Fantasy Mobius and Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles that we're working with now. Giving us one completed MR vision cards to help the beginners is a very, very smart move on their part. Because when we're approaching 6 months, sometimes it's a good idea to try to bring in more beginning players. And I think Final Fantasy Tactics Part 2 did just that, bringing perhaps tons of more beginning players. And I feel like as a content creator, it's a really good idea to help some of those beginner players out. So if you're a beginner and you stumble upon my content/channel, let me know something that you want to see in the future. I will gladly put out more content to help the beginning players or perhaps intermediate players. Even though I'm more or less experienced/player that's been playing since the beginning of launch, I feel like I still have a lot of room to learn. And speaking of which, joining this new guild/merging of our old guild together with a new guild, it's going to be, I feel like, very beneficial to me and of course the community. And the reason I say that is because when people get to know each other on a more deeper level in terms of how each person's background, their influence of gaming, their personal choices of playing style, is going to really be a powerful tool in helping me and other players improve themselves. I have learned so much through my streams, so much through my video creations, and in general discussions in Discord. And I even have folks personally email me and us sitting down and having private conversations about the game, life in general. I feel like during this pandemic, things like this type of gaming has really helped improve people in general. And I think it really showed how powerful humans can be if they put their mind to helping others. Going forward in the future, there are many things that I hope to see. Biggest thing obviously would be the implementation of what's going on the JP server, such as the Final Fantasy XII reruns, the Final Fantasy IV collaboration, which personally I'm definitely going for Kane, because I love the way he's designed, and I love piercing in this game actually, surprisingly more so than slashing. I hope they improve striking damage as well, because right now I'm not really sure exactly why the developers are really ignoring striking. I think striking should be cool, because me personally, I love the monk class. And if any of those of you who play Final Fantasy Tactics clearly realize that the 10 monk challenge was by far one of the most challenging, brutal / fun things part of Final Fantasy Tactics. I really love monks, and I'm hoping they will bring us more specific monks. Personally, I would love to see a male version of a monk in addition to Ziza, because I think a monk in the traditional design from the Final Fantasy Tactics would be a unit that I would love to get my hands on and play with. Other things I would really love to see are my dream collaborations. A video that I made roughly 2-3 months ago, I talked about dream collaborations. I think every individual that played this game have their own personal attachments to games because of where they grew up and the time era they grew up in. Personally, I love to see Chrono Trigger. I would not mind seeing Final Fantasy VII, believe it or not, even though I'm not really a fan of Final Fantasy VII. And please, before you reach into your screen and try to choke me, understand that I didn't like Final Fantasy VII because I've always been a huge fan of the actual fantasy genre. Even though I never played Dungeons and Dragons, I always loved things like dragons and wizards and thieves. And when they started using guns and machines and robots, I feel like that's something that swept away from the fantasy era, and more of a sci-fi. And I know, of course, there's going to be endless debate on those type of subjects. I would like to avoid them. All I can say is, I didn't really enjoy Final Fantasy VII for obviously those type of reasons. However, I did enjoy the design of those units, and I would love to see some of those units. Of course, Cloud, Sephiroth, which apparently everybody made their units to be. And by the way, when I see you making Sephiroth, so if you want to see me attack you, please change your game name, in-game name to Sephiroth, and you guarantee that I will try to attack you. But that's just me, right? I think other things I would love to see are perhaps some other more smaller titles from the Square games. And I think because of the fact that Enix is part of obviously Square Enix, I would love to see perhaps some Dragon Ball designer characters. And what I mean by that is obviously Dragon Quest or anything along those lines. I personally really enjoy Dragon Quest VIII, so I would love to see perhaps some of those units maybe 2-3 years down the future. I really hope that this game lasts a very long time, because this is one game that I love to play for a very long time. I love strategy games. I love the fact that I have control over my own actions. I feel like a lot of games nowadays that are turn-based, you can just hit the auto and you're good with it. But I personally love strategy games because I can suck at it or I can be really good at it. Ultimately, it boils down to how much energy and effort I put into the game. I think that's pretty much it for this video. I feel like overall, this game has a bright future. I think the community has a bright future. And I think as long as the companies work hard and diligently to encourage player behaviors that are positive, we're going to see a lot of happy things coming in our lives soon. Until next time, take care of yourself and all your loved ones. And remember, time is your most valuable resource, so use it wisely. Nashtaters and his family out. Peace.